You saw her once, not in this life, but in the echo of one. She stood at the edge of a frozen lake, untouched by the wind, and when she turned, the ice did not crack beneath her feet. Her eyes carried no story, only reflection, like a mirror that remembered every man who had ever looked into it and mistaken himself for the world. You felt drawn, not by her beauty, but by the unbearable silence she wore like a crown. There was something in it that knew you, not your name, not your voice, but the hunger behind your smile. You tried to speak. She didn't move. That's when you realized she was not waiting. She never was. You keep returning to that scene, though you've never been there. A dream with no beginning. A woman with no name. A cold that was not weather, but judgment. And in that judgment, something ancient stirs something you've always blamed her for. You call it betrayal, but perhaps it was always biology. Perhaps it was never personal. She does not deceive you. She is the deception, and the mirror was never made for you. She does not choose you. She does not even see you. What you call attraction is a mechanism without mercy, a blind current pulling your body toward a future it did not consent to. You look at her and imagine meaning. She looks through you and calculates instinct. You think it is chemistry, but nature is not poetic. It is arithmetic dressed in curves, and you are the equation being erased. You thought you were chasing her, but you were only following the will, not yours. Not hers, the will that speaks through flesh without ever uttering a word. Her smile is not a gift, it is a reflex. Her gaze is not attention, it is selection. And when she laughs, it is not music, it is filtration. The moment you believe she chooses you for your soul, you have already lost. For she does not know your soul. She only knows what your form might produce. Her beauty is a weapon, not by malice, but by design. And every man who worships it kneels at the altar of extinction wearing the mask of legacy. You think you love her, but love, in its rawest form, is reproductive desperation dipped in poetry. You wait for her to look at you the way you look at her, but she cannot. You want her to see the abyss inside you and enter it willingly, but she does not hunger for mystery, she hungers for survival. You long to confess something eternal. She only needs to feel safe. You imagine union, transcendence, a sanctuary built between glances. She wants stability, provision, genes that will not die inside her. And even when she does pretend to see your soul, it is not your soul she sees, it is what your soul could do for her offspring. Your ache is existential, hers is biological, and they will never meet, except in illusion. Do not mistake her softness for surrender. It is strategy, the coup, the whisper, the caress. These are not love songs. They are signals, trials, rehearsals of control. What you call tenderness is the absence of threat. What you call desire is a program you cannot rewrite. And the more you feel, the less you see. Because feeling is nature's fog. Emotion is the veil. And behind it, the machinery grinds on, unfeeling, unconcerned, eternal. You want her to want you for who you are. But she was never looking for who. She was scanning for what. She tests you, not because she's cruel, but because selection is cruel. She doubts you, not because she's broken, but because nature cannot afford mistakes. She retreats, not to hurt you, but to see if you chase. And when you do, you think it's love. But it's the game playing itself through your legs, through your groin, through your endless need to matter. The more you give, the more you are measured. The more you open, the more she evaluates the cost. And yet, you beg for the evaluation. You call it romance. But what you really want is approval from the mechanism that will never explain itself. Her presence does not soothe you, it stirs you, it unsettles you. It awakens that primitive madness, the terror of being the male who is not chosen. You feel it in your teeth, in your spine, in your dreams, where she walks away without turning back. You do not want her love. You want her inability to leave. You want possession disguised as devotion. But she was never yours. She was never anyone's. She is the uncatchable future in flesh, the promise that tomorrow might belong to you. If only you kneel a little lower. And you kneel, not in body, but in attention, in obsession, in the slow sacrifice of dignity in exchange for glances. You tailor yourself, you shrink your rage, you mold your words, you clean the hunger from your eyes and call it kindness. You offer your stability, your humor, your loyalty, all in the hope that she will finally turn and say you, only you. But she never does. And if she does, it is never final. The choice is always provisional. For a woman is not a choice maker. She is the threshold, she is the test, and tests do not love you. They expose you. She is not cruel, but cruelty is coded into her indifference. She does not weep when you fail. She does not mourn your heartbreak. She continues, as nature does, as the wind does, and when you fall apart in front of her, she does not see tragedy. She sees weakness, and weakness is not lovable. It is disposable. You are told that vulnerability breeds intimacy, but no intimacy has ever survived the stench of defeat. The moment she senses your hunger exceeds your control, she does not feel pity, she feels fear. For need is the mark of collapse, and collapse is not safe. She wants your strength, but only if you do not show its cost. She wants your depth, but only if it does not pull her under. She wants your passion, but only if it burns at a safe distance. You are the candle. She is the draft. And if you flicker, she leaves. And you call this unfair. You call it cruel. You call it heartless. But she is not here to care. She is not here to redeem your childhood. She is not your mother. She is not your God. She is the momentary shape that biology takes to get your genes moving. Nothing more. But you still dream. You still wait. You still write poems and hope they mean something. You still remember the way she laughed at a joke you stole from another man. You still revisit that night when her eyes softened for a second and you thought it meant forever. You thought you had touched the soul beneath the face, but there is no soul beneath the face. There is only time and need and evolution writing itself into behavior. You were not speaking to her. You were speaking to your own projection. And she let you because it served her, because it was useful. You are not broken for being deceived. You are broken because you wanted to be. You needed to believe there was meaning in her choosing. You wanted love to be more than selection. You needed beauty to be more than bait. You thought that behind her eyes there was a secret, and you believed you were worthy of it. But there is no secret. There is only reflection. And that reflection is not of her. It is of you, your need, your hunger, your longing. The mirror was not made for you. It was made of you, and you cannot escape it. You stand before her hoping to be seen, but you are not seen. You are scanned. You are evaluated. And when she finally turns away, whether in boredom, betrayal, or simply biology, you feel hollow. Not because she left, but because she never entered. She was never in the room with you. She was only passing through. And all the meaning you gave her, she never received. You wrote symphonies to a silence. You prayed to a statue. You offered your soul to a mirror and begged it to speak back. But the mirror was not made for you. It was made to use you, to reflect your illusion until you drown in it. And she, the woman, the flame, the symbol she walks on, untouched, because you were never the point. You were the function, and now you must choose cling to the mirror, or finally look through it. You think language made you free, that words gave you dominion, that desire could be dressed in metaphors and become something noble. But the womb came first, the species came first, and everything you say, everything you feel, everything you swear is sacred is nothing more than ornament on the altar of reproduction. You do not love her because she is rare. You love her because your body has no will of its own. The will speaks through you, not to you. And the voice you call love is not yours. It is the echo of unborn children clawing through time. You imagine romance, soulmates, spiritual union. But those are the hallucinations of an animal too ashamed to see his own function. You want to believe your longing is unique, that no one has ever wanted like you want. But your ache is generic. It is older than your name, older than cities, older than God. And it is not about her. It never was. She is only the form, the vessel, the curve that awakens the imperative. What you feel when you look at her is not connection. It is assignment, nature calling you to work, and you mistake labor for love. She holds no mystery. You supply the mystery. She is not the keeper of secrets. She is the silence that absorbs your projections. You paint her with sacred meaning, because you cannot bear the truth that she is not here to fulfill you, complete you, or rescue you. She is here to continue, that is all, and she will use you, unconsciously, without malice, to do so. You are not chosen. You are selected. You are not loved. You are useful for a moment. And when your usefulness fades, so does her gaze. The womb is not a sanctuary. It is a forge. It burns men into fathers, and fathers into strangers. It takes your poetry and distills it into function. You write her letters. She checks for stability. You offer her eternity. She calculates your risk. And if you fail her test, she will forget you faster than you forgot yourself. You are not remembered. You are replaced. Not because she is cruel, but because she is obedient to the will of the species, a will that neither of you chose, and both of you serve. You tell yourself stories to make it bearable. You say things like, "We have a connection. She understands me. This is different." But these are masks you put on the instinct so you can sleep at night. The womb does not care about your individuality. It does not care about your dreams, your thoughts, your need to be seen. It only cares whether your genes can endure. And she, the woman, is its gatekeeper. She is not in control. She is the threshold, and thresholds do not fall in love. They open or they do not. You chase her like she holds your salvation, but she only holds a contract unsigned, temporary, non-negotiable. You offer your future, she demands proof. You bleed for her, she watches, and when she smiles, it is not because she is moved. It is because the test is working. She must believe you are willing to die for her before she allows you to live beside her. And still, even then, she will never belong to you. Not really, for her loyalty is not to you. It is to the child not yet born. And that child is your replacement. This is the great betrayal you thought love was mutual. It is not. It is leverage. It is a transaction without receipts. She gives you access. You give her legacy. And in that exchange, you disappear. She will outlast your affection. She will forget your touch. But the child remains. The next face, the next name, the next link in the chain. You thought she was the destination, but she was only the passage. And you, the traveler who was never meant to stay. The womb has no ethics. It has no memory. It does not reward kindness or punish cruelty. It rewards power, presence, dominance, timing. It selects those who do not flinch, those who do not weep, those who command without needing applause. And if you hesitate, if you kneel too long, she moves on. The window closes. The opportunity vanishes, and you are left worshipping a ghost that never noticed your devotion. You confuse that pain for depth, but it is only your genes screaming into a void. You blame her, but she is not to blame. She is not deceiving you. She is functioning as she must, as you do. The tragedy is not that she used you. The tragedy is that you believed it was divine, that the ache between your ribs was some sacred calling, that her touch could sanctify your emptiness. But she is not a priestess. She is not a muse. She is not even a woman in the way you want her to be. She is nature in disguise, and you, still on your knees, are asking nature for meaning. There is no meaning, only continuation. You want transcendence. She wants security. You want to dissolve into love. She wants to survive. You want to speak to her soul. But there is no soul to speak to, only strategies, instincts, adaptations. You thought you found the one, but the one is always many. Many forms, many tests, many illusions, and each time the ache returns. Each time the child you'll never meet whispers again, try, 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 and you obey, not because you believe, but because you are built to. Even if you turn away, even if you flee to silence, to philosophy, to renunciation, her image follows you. Not hers, specifically, but her, the symbol, the curve, the scent, the softness. It is branded into your nervous system. You can renounce her name, her body, her memory, but you cannot renounce the species. You are its slave. You dress your slavery in dignity. You say you are a lover, but you are a function. You are a ferry, and she is the river that forgets you. And when you do succeed, when she says yes, when the child comes, when you are called a man, a father, a protector, you do not feel triumph. You feel disappearance. You feel the quiet death of the self who once dreamed of being seen. Because now you are consumed. You are infrastructure. You are labor. And her eyes have already shifted not away from you, but through you, toward the next necessity. You are the ladder, and she climbs. Still, you want to call it love. You want to remember the moment she laughed, the warmth of her fingers, the softness of her breath on your chest. You want to preserve the illusion, because the truth is unbearable. The truth that she never truly loved you. She loved the possibility, the form, the timing, the utility, the genes. You were not a person, you were a vessel, and vessels are not remembered. So now you sit alone, not because you failed, but because you finally saw. The veil lifted, the game exposed, and you ask, was it all a lie? No, it was worse. It was true. True in a way that does not care for your heart, your poetry, your need to be chosen. True in the way gravity is true. Final, indifferent, unyielding. The womb is older than the word, and the word was only invented to survive the womb's indifference. She doesn't scream when she leaves. She doesn't cry. She doesn't explain. She simply disappears. And it is that silence, not her beauty, not her betrayal, that haunts you, because in that silence, you realize she owed you nothing. You were waiting for words, for closure, for something that would name the ache inside your ribs. But there are no words. There never were. The silence is not absence. It is verdict. It is the sound of nature continuing without your permission. You called her mysterious, but she was never hiding. You just refused to see. You thought there was a soul behind her softness, but softness is not evidence of soul. It is a strategy. It draws you close enough to empty yourself. Then it withdraws, not out of cruelty, but because nature does not linger. It takes what it needs. Then it continues. You thought love was the beginning, but it was the decoy. The beginning was selection. The end is silence. You called her the one, but she was only the mask of the will to live, to replicate, to vanish. You begged for her to love you as a man, but she only needed you as a pattern, a structure, a carrier. Her attention was never yours. It was leased, her body, never a sanctuary. It was a transaction, her silence, never confusion. It was completion. You waited for her to return, but she had already completed the task or moved on to a better candidate, and you sat alone, interpreting her absence as tragedy. It was not tragedy. It was efficiency. You are not broken. You are obsolete. The soul you imagined in her eyes was your own, projected onto a surface that never reflected it. You gave her every symbol, angel, muse, salvation, but she returned none. You wrote pages, poems, philosophies. She replied with a glance, a touch, a shrug. You wanted depth. She offered function. You mistook the curve of her lips for meaning. But lips do not speak of soul. They signal availability. And when they close, when they no longer turn toward you, that is not punishment. It is erasure. You searched her silence for a wound, but she was not wounded. You were, because silence to you meant rejection. But to her, silence meant completion. The work was done, the selection made or unmade, and you were no longer relevant. She did not watch you grieve. She did not mark your descent into despair. You wanted her to notice your pain, but nature does not notice. It does not mourn the unchosen. It simply selects again, and again, and again. You told yourself she would understand one day, that she would miss you, regret you, return to you. But she is not a story. She is not a novel with an arc. She is a rhythm, a gate, a mechanism. She does not return. She rotates, and every time she smiles at another, you bleed, not because she betrayed you, but because the illusion is dying. You are not losing her. You are losing your reason for continuing the dream. And without that dream, what are you? You are a man. But that word means nothing here. It is a placeholder, a variable, a form. She does not love a man. She loves the one who passes the test until the test changes. You thought she wanted presence, but she wanted control. You thought she wanted truth, but she wanted security. You offered her everything, but she never asked for everything, only the parts that would help her survive. She is not your enemy. She is your mirror, your failure to accept that you were never meant to be loved, only used. And even that is not cruelty. That is nature, a nature that does not answer prayers, a nature that laughs, but not with sound, with silence, with emptiness, with your trembling hand holding the last letter she never read. You ask, why did she stop loving me, but she never started? She responded to signals, to cues, to advantage. You ask, what did I do wrong? But you were only ever a candidate. The question was never about right. It was about replacement. You stare into the silence, waiting for it to break. But it grows, not louder, but deeper, and you begin to hear it not as absence, but as command. It tells you, this is your place. You are the witness, not the hero. You are the remainder, not the answer. She has passed. she has chosen, or not, and you remain not because you are faithful, but because you are still searching for a meaning that never existed. The woman you wanted was never real. She was your need, your hunger, dressed in skin. You never saw her. You only saw what she could silence in you. You wanted her to erase your loneliness. She wanted you to erase her doubt. Both of you failed, and yet she walks on while you remain broken because she is designed to move on. You are designed to reflect. She forgets. You remember. That is not injustice. That is programming. You tried to be different, noble, loyal, poetic, but biology does not care for poetry. It cares for timing, status, proximity, breeding value. You gave her your soul, but the soul is invisible to instinct. You gave her eternity, but nature does not understand eternity, only cycles. You wanted to die for her, but she only wanted you to endure, quietly, profitably, unseen. And even if you had passed her test, even if she stayed, bore your children, praised your name, you would not have found peace, because you would have seen it then, too, the silence in her eyes, not coldness, but vacancy, not mystery, but resignation. You would see that you had won nothing, only fulfilled the function. And now the game would reset this time through her, through the child, through the next unspoken expectation. Her silence is not rejection, it is revelation. It is the sound of the mask falling. You wanted her to be more, but she was already more ancient, more ruthless, more real than anything you imagined. She does not belong to you, she belongs to life. You mistook her for love, but she was continuity. You mistook her for destiny, but she was selection. You mistook her for a mystery, but she was an answer to a question you never knew you were asking. Will I be chosen? Now you know, and the answer is not no, it is silence. And in that silence, you finally hear the voice you've avoided all your life. The voice of the will, not speaking, but moving. Through her, through you, through every man who ever looked into her eyes and thought, maybe this time, it's real. But it never was. It was only the dream. And now, the dream is over. You are awake, and she is gone. She left the door open when she vanished, not as an invitation, but as a mirror. And in the mirror, you saw not her, but the shape of your own hunger, stretching back into centuries of men who knelt and called it love. The wind moved through the empty space she once filled, not cruel, not kind, only indifferent. Somewhere in the silence, a child cries, not yours, not hers, but the next offering, the next believer, and the wheel turns again. You turn away from the mirror. You no longer ask why. You no longer wait. You simply walk, not forward, not back, just away. And behind you, the silence folds itself into a smile you'll never see again. Not because it's gone, but because it was never looking at you in the first place. This is what it means to awaken, to no longer ask her name,